Every landscape photographer needs ND filters to do a plethora of things. And in this video, I'm talking about the 3 ND filters that you need in your bag. What's up guys, it's Project Photography back in another video, and today So ND filters can do so much for landscape photographers. They can do things like smooth out the water, make movement in the clouds, you can actually add movement in the water and so on, and it can even remove people from landscapes. And this is such a crucial aspect and a crucial part of every landscape photographer's bag. You can do so many creative things with ND filters, and I think a lot of new landscape photographers feel really mystified when it comes to actually choosing ND filters for landscape photography. May not know like what strength of ND filters they might need, what brand, and so on. So in this video, I'm gonna be clarifying all that type of stuff and showing you the 3 filters that I use for my landscape photography and the 3 filters that you probably should put in your bag as well. There's 3 of them, and we're gonna run down each of them in these next parts. So let's jump right into the first filter that we're talking about today, and it is the ThreeStop Filter by B+W. All my filters are B+W. That's the brand of choice that I like to use for my own landscape photography, and it is an 82mm filter. It's really nice, compact, easy to store, and so on. I can throw all these filters in this filter pouch that I have for 82mm filters. And the thing I love about this filter is the fact that it is so sharp, so small, so compact, minimal vignetting, minimal color cast, and it just does the job so well. We're able to reduce the actual exposure by 3 stops, and what that allows us to do is create perfect short exposures, like 1/2 second to 2 second long exposures. Now what this is gonna be able to do is create a lot of dynamic movement in the water especially, and of course this filter is only really gonna be able to do its job if you're nice and close to the actual water, so we can get that water moving in, capture that dynamic movement in the water. With those 1/2 second to 2 second exposures, we're able to see that water moving, coming forward, able to create a nice sort of dynamic feel to the actual foreground while having a static sort of sky. It's able to create some really nice, interesting movements. And as a landscape photographer, you want to be able to have those different types of tools in your toolkit to be able to express your art in the way that you want possible. Like for example, if it's a very fluid moving ocean, there's a lot of movement in the water for that particular day, you can go ahead and capture that with a filter like this. And something that's really interesting about this filter, like I've kind of said, is you can create those dynamic feels and movement in the water, and that kind of adds its own sense of foreground element to the water, right? You can create your own foreground element without there actually being a foreground element in particular. You're able to have that nice movement and really showcase off what the landscape has to offer. So I really like this filter a lot. This is definitely a filter that you can't avoid having in your bag. You definitely want one of these. And the 3-stop for me is a filter that I'm using all the time to create my art. Now let's move on to the second filter. It is the 6-stop filter from B+W. Now this is definitely the midway between something that's a much longer exposure filter versus something like a 3-stop filter. It's a nice midway to be able to capture. I usually use it for 30-second exposures, 10 to 30-second exposures. It really depends on the light. And all these filters really depend on the light actually, because if you use a 3-stop in pitch black darkness, it's gonna definitely create a different feel, different look. But for me, that 6-stop filter is mainly used for those 30-second long exposures when the light has gone down pretty significantly. Because if I were to use something like a 10-stop filter, we'd be pushing into 10-minute territory. And that's just pretty unpractical for our landscape photography. But kind of like I said, you want to use this filter to create those much longer exposures, especially in the dark. You're able to smooth out the water, smooth out the sky, and so on. And it also is just a really clean filter overall. Like I said, like kind of like the other filter, like my 3-stop filter, is very clean, very smooth. It's pretty sharp overall. So I really like this filter a lot, and it doesn't have the same vignetting problems as something like a 10-stop does. So it's great at keeping the water smooth, and this is definitely a filter that I would probably use a little bit farther back from the water. But if I want to create those nice clean movements, clean smooth imagery in the actual water, this filter can definitely do that. And I use something like a 6-stop filter over something like a 4 or an 8-stop filter because it's right in the middle between that 3 and 10-stop, and I feel like it just slots in really nicely between those 2 filters. So let's go ahead and move on to the last and final filter. And this filter for me is probably the one filter I would have to recommend everyone getting if they're gonna start out with landscape photography. This is probably the one filter that if you can only have one filter, this is one I would probably have. And it is a 10-stop filter from B+W. And this is a filter that I've used and was actually my first filter for a long time, because what it's able to do is really smooth out that water. We're able to get 30 to 2-minute long exposures, and if you're able to do that, it creates such a unique different feel in the actual landscape photo than something like a 3 or a 6 stop. They are great especially during the daytime when there's like a lot of sun out. You're able to just smooth everything out. You know, you can have that nice movement in the actual clouds. And on top of it, you can actually remove people from the landscape if they're moving enough. You can throw on that TenStop filter and people will kind of just stop existing from the landscape, and that's really important if you want to keep your landscapes really nice and nature-like. My only problem with this filter is that there's a certain point when you use it, those trees that have nice movement are going to start to get a little bit blurred, so you're definitely going to see a lot of movement from there. Essentially everything that has movement will be showing in the actual landscape through a sort of like blurred imagery. And you know, I like to use this especially when I'm farther out from water. Of course you can use it when you're closer to water, but if I'm on the top of like a hillside, for example, this is definitely the filter I'm gonna be using to go ahead and smooth everything out, create those nice clean imagery, and get those nice movement in the clouds. So those are the 3 filters I want to talk about, and for each one of these filters has a job and a purpose in and of itself. You know, the ThreeStop Filter is meant to create those short, you know, exposures to create some nice movement in the water, but still isolate in the sky. The SixStop filter is definitely the midpoint between the 3 and the TenStop, and it's able to, you know, shoot during the dark, during, you know, sort of when the light is going down. Able to get those 30-second long exposures to help smooth out the water and so on. And last of all, the TenStop filter, like I said, is meant to really isolate and remove people from the actual landscape photo itself, but also create nice movement in the water as well as create some nice movement in the sky. It's a really good filter, and that's probably the one I would recommend everyone getting to start off with because it's such a drastic difference from the 3 and the 6 stop. And now a lot of people might say, you know, why wouldn't I just get something like a variable ND? And for me personally, it's not ideal, right? We're not really moving around a lot when we're actually shooting our landscapes. So when we're shooting landscape photography, we can actually change out those filters as we need it. And like I said, like the 3, 6, and 10 style are pretty much ideal for your own landscape photos. I've seen people with kits that just use a 4 and an 8. It really depends on your personal preference, but for me, you're able to have those different segments and have each filter have a specific job and purpose. And also, I feel like the individual NDs actually provide better image quality and so on. And again, like I said, you don't need the quick access for different NDs like video. You can take your time with this one. So guys, let's jump right into the conclusion. And kind of like what I said earlier, you just have to find what works for you. Some people like that 4 to 8 stop filter. Some people like the 3 to 6 and 10 stop filters. And for me, the 3, 6, 10 filters just makes a lot more sense because you're able to have different segments, different NDs, different strengths to target different, you know, situations and needs. And I think that's really important as a landscape photographer because, you know, when you're out there in the elements, you really can't predict what is going to happen when it comes to your landscape photography. You kind of have to just roll with the punches and see what's up. And, you know, I feel like with the 3, 6, and 10, there's not nearly as much gap between the, you know, long end and the short end. You're able to have that nice midpoint with this 6 stop, and you're able to just cover so much ground with those type of filters. So let me know what you guys use for your filters for your landscape photography. 3, 6, and a 10 is definitely one I need, and I think I recommend for most landscape photographers. So anyways, guys, let me know what you guys think down in the comment section down below. What filters do you use for your own landscape photography? Thank you so much for experiencing the world with me today, and rate, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.